I shall be telling this with a sigh. Somewhere ages and ages hence, two roads diverged in a wood, and I took the one less traveled by. And that has made all of the difference. It's time now for you to join us on the journey. It's time for you and I to take the road less traveled. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I am your humble host, Mr. Dennis Carroll, and this is another episode of The Road Less Traveled. Tonight we are doing ghost planes, and maybe we may throw some drones in on that as well. So we are definitely going to ply the haunted skies tonight. And here's my co-pilot,
Hello.
Mr. Gerald Fountain.
How
Good
are you
evening,
doing?
sir. All right. It's been a long weekend.
It's been a good
Well, for some
weekend.
people, I guess other people it
Yeah,
didn't. For us retired folks, it's long. Yeah. Some people it went by very fast. Time is relative, though. That's the way it goes. I want to welcome some of our people in the chat room here. Hello, Shiro and Demaria and Catherine and Mr. Kyle Smith. That's my nephew, Kyle Smith, there. Yes, I did adopt him. And who else we got in here? Let's see. We got Mary, yeah.
they're
Mary
flooding in.
Staunton. Mm-hmm. And let's see what else. We got a few stragglers coming in here that'll be in. Here's the bounty hunting bears in here. Bounty hunting bears in the building.
All right.
So tonight we're doing the haunted skies. You know, there's a lot of things haunting our skies, definitely. You got supposedly alien ships. You've got drones nowadays. You got a lot of drones out there. You got people who are seeing skyfish and other weird objects, sky rays. And you've got, and then on top of all that, you've got ghost planes, which is what we're going to talk a little bit about tonight. Ghost airplanes. And there's quite a history on them. Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Hello, Roger Blair. Come on in the house. But this is a fascinating subject. I have always, for many years, I have been interested in our haunted skies because you've got, like a Mothman flying around out there. You've got, all kinds of stuff going on. And here's the thing about it, Gerald. We've talked about this before, but people do not look up that much anymore. They got their head stuck in the phone. They're always looking down and not looking up, and they may be missing a lot of stuff here.
Yeah. You can't see the drones if you're not looking up.
Oh yeah, you better watch out. You might get hit by the drone there if you're not careful. That wouldn't feel good, probably. A lot of people think, when we say drones, a lot of people think it's the one coming out of a box from Walmart. No, we're not talking about that. We're talking about SUV sized drones.
Right.
And these drones definitely, I heard an on them, okay? And he said that these have got to be government drones because commercial drones do not have that kind of infrared and heat-seeking knowledge that these drones would definitely have to fly at night.
Okay.
And the government should be about the only people that can afford something like that. You know what I'm saying? Unless you're very rich and you got plenty of money to throw away. But it's put it this way, it's not something that's found very common to be in the public, technological public capacity. Put it that way. This is something would definitely be government, especially with the night vision and heat seeking stuff on there, the infrared and all that. And would definitely be government. And that's what it takes to fly at night with a drone.
Absolutely.
As you and I both know, Gerald, if you've ever been around it, it is very hard to even pilot a plane at night. It's a whole different thing together to pilot a plane at night than it is in daytime. Just going by your instruments a lot because you can't see out the window at night. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So you're going by instruments a lot when you fly planes. And of course, unfortunately, that sets you up a lot of times for some unfortunate mistakes that can occur. Bad
Well,
things.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Even the most experienced pilots, once they have an instrument failure and they're just flying by line of sight, and if you're in dark or in fog or rain or a storm, I mean, there's just all kinds of possibilities that could cause trouble for you.
Oh yeah, and I've always thought about it like being in World War II. I'm coming in hot with Foo Fighters on my tail, kind of thing. They would come in a wing and a prayer, and have to land those things on the belly sometimes.
Right.
They were good pilots, buddy. They had to be if you wanted to survive. You had to know your stuff. Let's see. Bowie Media says drones that meet FAA regulations took Christmas off.
Yep. That's my good friend Professor Bauer. We do a show, Geezer Geeks, on Saturday night.
Mm-hmm. Good evening, Gemini Moon. Good to have you here. That's true, and of course, and I tell this to people too. Do not, under any circumstances, shoot one of these things down, okay? Because you're looking at federal time here. You could go to the federal pen for that because that's against the FAA regulations. You don't shoot anything down that flies, okay? This is not wartime. Do not run out there with a shotgun and shoot something down like that. That's a big no-no, okay? You can get in a whole lot of bad trouble doing that. I was even, let me tell you this, not very far from where I live. This guy actually, and this was a small surveillance drone, okay? And the sheriff's department have drones because I used to work with them, and I know they have drones. And this idiot ran out of his house because they were happened to be flying over his property. And I don't know, they might have been checking out some stuff. He might have been something he didn't to see, but he ran out with a shotgun and shot that drone down. And the sheriff not only came after him, but the federal agency did too. Well, you just don't do that. Because that falls along the same lines of these idiots playing with lasers and shooting lasers up at airplanes and stuff, junk like that. You don't do either, better not.
Right.
Get in a whole lot of trouble. But we're talking tonight we're going to talk a little bit about ghost ship airplanes, airships, and you don't have about shooting them down because they're ghosts, okay? But you shouldn't be able to shoot them down, but that way. But there's a whole lot of stories about these things going way back to like even World War I. And one of the most famous supposed air ghost planes is supposed to be seen once in a while is that of the Red Baron.
Right.
Supposedly, yeah, his plane is supposedly seen from time to time in parts, I think, over parts of France where he was shot down. And he was shot down by somebody with a rifle on land, actually. He was never shot down by another plane. A lot of people don't know that. They thought it was Snoopy. They thought it was Snoopy, but it wasn't Snoopy. I was
going to say, okay? Snoopy didn't shoot him down. There's a song and everything about it.
Yeah. It was a supposedly a soldier with a rifle that shot him down, but it wasn't Snoopy. No, it wasn't Snoopy.
Oh,
You can't lay that one on Snoopy's doorway there. Nope. But he is supposed to be seen because he had a very distinctive airplane. It was red,
right.
and
Had
had
the
the black
iron
German
crosses on it.
yeah. And he was a Blue Max. He was the top kind of aviator that they had. The Blue Max was really like an air knight. You were knighted for valor, and so if you got the Blue Max,
Was it was it Aaron von Richthofen? What was his name? Is that right? Aaron. I
yeah,
don't know.
something like that. Yeah, and we know we call him the Red Baron, but his name was just something like that. I can't. It was von Richtenhoff, wasn't it? Something
Von
like that. Von
Richtenhofen.
Richtenhoff.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. The Red Baron. He was called that because his plane was red. That's what it was.
If we wouldn't get in trouble with YouTube, we could play
It
this
was
Snoopy
sort of a
song.
dark red. It wasn't a bright red. Yeah. Snoopy could see him better that way. He's in a red plane. Ever heard about the Blue Max? The Blue Max. Well, matter of fact, they made a movie about it. Very famous movie. I think it stars George Papard. He was the German officer. The Blue Max was the top of the line, buddy. He was
Right.
supposed to be better. He was better than the Red Baron. He was good. And there was one scene in that movie where he flies under a bridge and turns that plane sideways and goes under that bridge. That's amazing what these guys could do. And he had like fighters on his tail while he did it. But he went under this bridge and it was like maybe you couldn't put a piece of paper between the wings and the bridge on the plane. It was wild.
Now our pilots were called aces, right? And now in today's terms, they use Top Gun.
I think you have to have so many kills to become an ace. I forget exactly. I think it's 30 kills or something like that.
I don't know. I just know they call our top people aces, and then they go to Top Gun school. If you watch the movies anyway,
a lot of the kills that we're talking about may not be actual combat. You know what I'm saying? They do the games, and you can have what's called a technical kill, on another plane. Then it racks you up so many kills like that, you become an ace, But the real aces of World War II, they were doing real kills. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. It wasn't simulated combat. Have you ever been on any flying objects you couldn't say for certain what he was? I have seen a lot of them. I have seen some weird stuff. I saw a very large triangular craft. I talk about that in my book, The Road Unseen. You might want to check my book out on Amazon. But I had some very, very strange stuff happen with that. That was one thing I've seen. I've seen several other objects that I could not explain. One of them I've told you about this was looked like I believe it was some kind of alien probe is what I think it was. I don't know. It was metallic and all that. And just the other day, an astronaut who was flying across Texas in a plane actually said did you hear about this, Euro? He said he actually saw two metal globes pass his plane at a high rate of speed.
Wow. I didn't see that one.
Now, what the heck is that? Because it's not like a drone. I believe without a doubt, I'll say this, and I could be wrong, I could be wrong about a lot of things, but I believe without a doubt if there are any kind of alien activity going on this planet right now, it is in the form of probes.
Yeah, exploration like drones, orbs. scouters.
They're kind of drone. Their drones may not look like our drones. Put it
Right.
that way. Yeah.
Now, if they want to go to Midwest Night Watchers on YouTube, there's a bunch of videos, and that's how we started our YouTube page or a channel.
Yeah,
There's a mothership was our very first video that, at least that's what we're calling it. We're not 100% sure what it is, so go check that out. And there's orb videos, there's sky rods and skyfish and all kinds of stuff on there. So go check those out and see what you think and let us know.
Yeah. Go to Midwest Night Watcher for all your sky watching needs. Urso says, I saw 3 little clouds go by a tree, go behind a tree, and come out the other side, one big cloud. Then I got a video of a black thing inside a cloud. I believe without doubt they use clouds to cloak with. That would be a smart thing to do when you think about it.
Yeah, Urso was typing that in Jessica's chat today. It was very interesting.
Oh, yeah. By the way, we had a great Christmas show. If any of you missed it, you might want to go back and check it out. It's in my library on Hunting the Shadows YouTube channel. We had Jessica and we had Barb Hartman up here. Yeah, it was a great show. If you missed it, check it out. Kyle Smith said, I saw one off the back porch, thought it was a shooting star. It stopped and then went on a 30-degree angle. Well, here's the thing, and Gerald knows this. Satellites go in a straight line. They always move in a perpendicular straight line across the sky. If something deviates off of a straight line, you got something else in.
Especially if it takes a sharp angle. You know, planes can curve around and redirect, but if it goes up and then all of a sudden goes to a complete like 90 degrees or different angles, then that's something different you got.
Oh yeah. I'll tell you what I saw one time. I was on the way to work, you know, and it was early in the morning. And I was stopped at a red light and I looked and I thought I saw a star, you know, in the sky. I thought, well, is that Venus, you know? Because I always, you know, I'm always into star watching and stuff. I said, Venus is in the wrong place. You know, it shouldn't be there. But I was seeing it. And as I'm looking at that thing, girl, it just does like a zoom. It's gone.
Wow.
But it was stationary. And it went sideways from what I mean. It didn't go towards me. It went away from me very quickly. There's nothing can move that fast.
No, that's weird.
Human beings.
There ain't nothing that can turn that sharp unless it's something extraterrestrial or whatever it is. It's not anything that we have that we know of anyway.
Yep. But we have some haunted skies, definitely. We have a lot of stuff going on. So everybody watching tonight, you need to start looking up more often. You might see something. If you do, we want to hear about it. Definitely want to hear about it.
Well, you got a story to start us off with? Some pictures or something?
Yep. There's a lot of stuff going on with glitches and everything too. You got, you know, stuff hanging up in the sky and doing some weird things, you know. Now, I saw one the other day, and it was this tree limb that was detached from a tree, of course, hanging in the sky, you know. But I got to looking at that very close. You could actually see a wire through it. That thing was hanging on like maybe in the telephone wire or something.
Okay.
But the way it was, you couldn't see it. But at a different angle, I could kind of make it out, you know. But you have to be very careful what you're looking at. A lot of hoaxing going on, definitely.
Remember the old hoaxes? It used to be like they take pie tins and throw them up in the air and take pictures of them and all kinds of saucer looking things.
Yeah. They glue some stuff on them and throw them in there and take a picture of them.
But now we got AI to worry about what's real and what's not.
Oh yeah, AI has messed up everything. Respect, because you can't really trust anything. You cannot trust your eyes anymore. I'm sorry, folks, but that's it. That's the way it goes. Hello, Russell. Good to have you here. But that's the way it goes, unfortunately, now. With the technology, we cannot trust our own eyes anymore. Could be real, could not be real. That's what I said the other day. If aliens show up, girl, tomorrow, nobody may believe it. I'll be like, no, it's Hollywood. They don't
That's
believe
part
it.
of a that's
It
part
may
of a
be the real
movie.
aliens, but nobody will believe it, you know?
Maybe that's why they're not coming, because they said nobody will believe it anyway.
Yeah. I don't think they want to mess with us, you know. Like
Or
they wants to mess with that bunch of rednecks.
or more, maybe they're already here mixing in because nobody will believe it.
They got better things to do. Yeah. That may be, you know, we could be the backwater of the here, you know. We could be off the track. They don't want to mess with us. Let's go look at them, see what they're doing right now, just for the fun of it, you know. Maybe they drop in once in a while. Once in a while, they check it. But now let's talk about ghost planes. Okay. Now you've got a lot of stories in aviation history about so-called ghost planes and ghost ships in the sky. And like I said, some of this goes back to World War One. World War II has a lot of them. A lot of planes supposedly seen around some of the older airports that are not supposed to be there. They're not part of an air show, anything like that. They just show up out of nowhere, and they try to land, and they're like from World War II or something. We got a lot of reports of that. And here's an interesting concept we got to think about. When you take to the skies, and we were talking about this before the show, this happens on land as well, folks, because it's happened to me. It's happened to a lot of people I've talked to. You can lose time. It's like a time warp. You run into a time warp every now and then. Well, I really don't call it a warp. I call it a bump. It's kind of like a pothole in time. You're going to hit it and boom, and you lose some time. This happens. I have lost some time like that. Other people, we were talking about this before the show, have lost time. Right? This can also happen in the sky. Okay. And it is reported a lot by pilots that say from point A to point B. And everything is down by time on these flights too. Don't forget that. You gotta time it because of your what? Fuel consumption. But they're not allowed to talk about this. Pilots are not allowed to talk about this. They sign NDAs on this stuff, okay? They're not allowed to talk about UFOs. Very rarely do you ever hear them say anything. Why? Well, I had somebody ask me this other day. Well, they're not really seeing any UFOs anymore. I said, not that they can talk about. That's what you're not hearing. They can't talk about some stuff.
Yep.
That's just like, now you can do this too. You can go to a lot of park rangers. I'm talking about federal park rangers, okay? At some of these historic places and say, tell me about some paranormal stuff going on this. I can't talk about that. They're not allowed to talk about that stuff. They could get in trouble. A lot of them won't talk about it. Very rarely will you get one that will tell you anything,
Right.
And they're doing that at the possibility of losing their job. Or then, like I said, they sign NDAs, non-disclosure agreements. They can take them to court, put them in jail, if you break those things. So you got to understand there is a cloak of secrecy over a lot of this stuff for a reason.
Same thing with our national and state parks. The rangers
and
people that work there won't talk about it because they don't want to be ridiculed and they don't want a chance of losing their job, just like you said.
The government's into a lot of stuff they don't want anybody to know about. And park rangers and all them, they see some stuff going on, okay? But they can't about it. Sorry, that's it. That's the way it goes. And they won't even talk about Bigfoot. They won't talk about Dog Man. They won't talk about anything because they're not allowed to. But the government is putting a cloak of secrecy. You got to ask yourself why. There's a very good reason why they're doing that, because they're involved in it. Okay, that's the big thing. There's a big involvement in it. That's what's going on, and that's the same thing with the UFOs. Okay, they're not going to disclose anything to you folks. Okay, they're not going to tell you the truth. They're not in the business of telling the truth. Okay, they're in the business of hiding the truth. That's what it's all about. Like on the X-Files, you trust no one. They don't trust you with the truth, that's for sure. They're
That's
not going to
right.
disclose it. But, we keep hoping one day maybe they will. But I think it's a hope in vain, okay? But there's a lot of stuff going on in this world, and we need to open our eyes and understand, hey, we need to really, really open our eyes and get our head out of the sand and really see, just like Joel and I were talking about earlier, we need to start looking up more often. We need to be aware of what's really going on around us, whether it's on land, air, or sea. Okay? There's a lot of stuff going on. There's a bunch of stuff, some of these drones supposedly coming out of the water. That doesn't surprise me a bit. There are parts of the ocean that are off limits. If you try to drive over it with a boat, you will get arrested. Why? Because they have undersea facilities. They got them on land called Area 51. They got some under the ocean, folks. Yes, ma'am. Yes, sir. That's where some of these drones coming from. Yeah, that don't surprise me a bit. That doesn't make them aliens, though. Okay, this technology is real. Let me say, and I've said this before. Gerald knows what I'm talking about. The technology that you have in your hands right now is 100 years or more behind what the government technology is. Don't ever forget that. That's where you stand. But there's a lot of stuff going on, and we need to become more aware of, and that includes some of this time stuff. Got some weird, like I said, what happened to me was in a fog on a mountain one night. Weird stuff can happen. You can go from point A to point B, which took you 10 minutes, and sometimes it'll take you 30. There's no reason for that. You didn't run into traffic. You didn't run into anything. What's going on?
Right.
And it can go the other way. You can lose time. You can gain it or you can lose it. And this, I guarantee you, happens a lot more. I think it probably happens more often in the sky than it does on the land. And there are a lot of portals reported in the sky.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah, of course, as we were talking about that before the show, that very famous Twilight Zone episode about Flight 33, where they actually went back in time in the plane, Supposedly, that's supposed to be now based on a real story or an incident that happened. It may not have been as dramatic as, of course, it was on the Twilight Zone, but I'm gonna do the Twilight Zone thing for you before the end of the show. You'll associate with that. That's one of
Yeah,
my
I like Twilight Zone.
That's
Matter
one
of
of my
fact,
favorite Twilight Zone episodes.
Matter of fact, if you have cable or some way to watch it, the Sci-Fi Channel usually shows 2 days marathon of all the
Oh, yeah.
sci-fi or Twilight Zone
That's good.
episodes.
That's good. I like the old Twilight Zone, definitely. But anyway, that is a very famous supposed incident of time. Aberration. It's called an aberration, not apparition, but an aberration. It means that's an unnormal or unusual bounce there. Anyway, that happens a lot, more I think than is reported, definitely. But there are certain places in the world where it happens too. I love the Twilight Zone. I'm watching it tomorrow with Gus. So okay.
Yeah, it's 2 days straight. Starts
Green light
New
that we
Year's
got a
Eve and
fan
goes
here,
through
folks.
New
Okay, we
Year's
got
Day.
Gus is a big fan of the Twilight Zone. Okay, he knows his stuff. Yeah, but anyway, that was a great episode, and I always like the. Let's see if I can remember the ending of it. I'll do it for you right quick. It was the Transocean jetliner en route from London to New York on an uneventful June afternoon in the year 1961, but now reported overdue and missing, and now searched for on land, sea, and in the air by anguished human beings, fearful of what they'll find. But you and I, however, know where she is. You and I know what's really happened. So if some moment, any moment, you should happen to hear the sound of jet engines flying atop the overcast, engines that sound searching and lost, engines that sound desperate, shoot up a flare or do something, for that will be Transocean Flight 33, trying to get home from the Twilight Zone. I love that one. That's a great one.
That is a good story.
Absolutely. I try to do my Rod Serling voice for you.
Submitted for your approval.
I actually talked to his wife, Carol Serling. She was a nice lady, very nice. I always wanted to talk to him, but unfortunately he passed away. But always a great writer. Great writer. I think the episode where they got the guy kept seeing something on the wing of the plane. Oh yeah, that's a very famous one. Yeah.
That's William Shatner's.
Yeah, the Gremlin.
Captain
that
Kirk.
back in World War II, Joe and Gerald, they talked about gremlins messing up the planes.
Yep. And the Foo Fighters.
But that's a very famous one with Captain Kirk. William Shatner, still kicking around. But anyway, you got some weird stuff going on in the sky, absolutely. And I was going to tell about, I have a ghost story very close to where I live. There is a town Valhalla, and I was explaining to Gerald it was supposed to be Valhalla, okay, but somebody messed it up. Somebody at the post office and made it put a W instead of a V, and that made it be named a town called Walhalla. Now Walhalla is the only town in the world named that. Okay, that's the only town. But we have what's called the Walhalla Hitchhiker, and what happened along this highway in Walhalla, South Carolina? Plane crashed in the rainy weather, and the guy died. It was a small plane, it wasn't a big plane, it was a small private plane. And he crashed in bad weather, and supposedly he died. And people are supposed to still pick him up on the side of the road and give him a ride. And he's always, no matter what, if it's raining or not, he's wearing a yellow rain slicker that's wet.
Oh.
And you'll get in the car and you'll say, I got to get home. I got to get home. And you let him in the car to give him a ride, and halfway down the road, he disappears and leaves nothing but a rain puddle on the seat. This supposedly happened. I have investigated this several times, but I've never run into a guy with a yellow slicker on yet. But that is a very interesting ghost story that's attached to an airplane disaster.
Right.
That's unusual. But they call him the Valhalla Hitchhiker. But that is very interesting. So you got ghost planes on the ground too. Not only just in the sky. Well, you got some pictures you want to share with us here, Gerald?
Yeah, I can start off. We can
All right.
go. We can go with one that we've talked about before, at least on maybe not together, but I think we have.
All right. Let's get to see what we
Does
got here. What you got?
does that plane look familiar at all?
That wouldn't happen to be the 401 there, would it?
That is a plane, the Eastern TriStar, the 401. And that has some good
The
stories.
TriStar 401, the flight of 4.
Yep,
Now that
Eastern
girl is
Airlines.
one of the most famous. Yeah, one of the most famous ghost liners.
So you want to go ahead and talk about that, Dennis? Go ahead and start it.
Okay, well, Flight 401 crashed in the Everglades, right? I think right before New Year's Eve that year. And there was a good many survivors out of it, but there were a lot of people that did not survive. And mostly the crew died. A lot of them, the crew died. And you had the captain who died, and of course you had the co-pilot, and you had the navigator. Now the navigator, he went down in the hellhole. Now the hellhole is up under the cockpit, and in the hellhole you've got a viewer, and it's built. It used to be built. I don't know if it still is, but it used to be built into um,
Should be
the plane, so
somewhere in
that
there. It's not
you
showing
look
it on
through the
this
viewer
picture.
and see if your landing gear was down. Yeah, to see if your landing gear was down, because sometimes the landing gear light would malfunction, and that's what actually happened to this. The light malfunctioned, but the landing gear was okay. It was down. Actually, when Bob Loftus got and looked into the viewfinder in the hellhole there, he could see that he called back up to him. Oh, okay, good. You're good. And let them know that the landing gear was down because the light wasn't. But what they didn't know that one of the pilots, whether it was the co-pilot or the pilot, the main pilot, accidentally hit the autopilot and knocked it off. And the plane was they didn't know it. The plane was slowly descending in
Right.
altitude, and it finally bellied up down in the swamps of the Everglades. And when it did, it broke apart. Some of it caught on fire. It was a lot of them that died from burns and all that. And a lot of them survived, though. Several of them did. And some of them were stewardesses, too, that survived. And
Right.
but after that crack up, they supposedly used parts from that plane on other planes. I think they used some of the ovens. There was some salvageable parts off of that plane. It didn't go up in a big ball of fire kind of a thing. So they were able to salvage some parts, and the parts that they used on other planes, they began to have a strange association. Supposedly, people began to see the ghosts of the crew of Flight 401 on different planes wherever the parts of that plane were on.
Yep.
And there was one instance where they seen Bob Lofton. Bob Lofton was one of them. He was the one that was in the hellhole. And they seen his reflection, actually, of him standing there in the oven door, the glass door of the oven. Some of them were seen sitting in seats. One time, the captain of the Flight 401, the ghost of the captain, appeared in the cockpit and spoke to the pilot and said, "This is what he said: there'll never be another crash of a TriStar." In other words, what this supposedly was telling the pilot, and this is the pilot swore to this. Okay, he was telling them, "We're going to watch, we're going to guard, we're going to watch the planes and make sure that nothing else ever happens to them like that again." Supposedly, because they were invested in the TriStar. That was their main kind of. What you see there is a TriStar, and it was one of the best jetliners ever made, by the way. And what happened with Flight 401 was pilot error. That's pure and simple. That's what it was, unfortunately. Human error. It was not the plane, you know. But they eventually had to take those parts off of other planes to stop the appearances of these ghosts. Great book. If you ever get a chance to read this book or get a copy of it, you can still find it on Amazon, I think. The Ghosts of Flight 401. This is one of the strangest modern day ghost stories to take place in our lifetime.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's amazing how they were getting
And by the
warnings.
way, Ed and Lorraine Warren had some parts on it. You can still find parts, supposedly, from it out in the Everglades if you know where to look. But they had parts in their museum, and they were supposedly visited by Alton and some of the crew in their museum because they had parts from that plane.
Wow.
Yep. The Ghost of Flight 401. And the airline is trying to hush this up real quick. They threaten the people. They threaten stewardesses. If you talk about this to anybody, you will be immediately fired. You know, that was it.
Right.
They threatened the pilots and the stewardesses and shut them up very quickly. A lot more happened that we'll probably never know about.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I have some slides of some other bizarre missing, disappearing flights, so we can kind of go through those slides, and if it rings a bell with you, you can go ahead and tell us anything you know about it. Otherwise, we'll just read what's on the screen.
Let's see what we got here.
Northwest Orient Airlines.
Northwest Orient, yeah. Okay,
I'll just go ahead and read that bottom, and you can tell me if it sounds familiar to you or if you know anything about it. It says in 1950, Northwest Orient Airlines Flight 2501 disappeared over Lake Michigan with 58 passengers and crew on board. Despite extensive search efforts, only small pieces of debris were found, leaving the fate of the plane and its occupants a mystery. The disappearance remains one of the greatest unsolved aviation mysteries in U.S. history.
Another mystery of the sky there, huh?
Yeah, you know, the funny thing about these planes, a lot of them, they disappear off the radar. Then it takes a long time for them to get a search team or other planes up in the air. And then they fly. Either they're on autopilot or they just fly in a straight line for a long time. So when they disappear on the radar, who knows how far they've flown before they crash or whatever happens to them.
Well, you might remember the very famous scene in Close Encounters of the Third Kind where those Flight 19 came back with his ship. You remember that?
Right.
And those pilots all came back. There's a lot of speculation that a lot of these planes disappear in portals in the sky and end up in other destinations or other places. And supposedly some of them may be alien abductions. There's a lot of stories of so-called alien abductions that take place in airplanes in flight. I've had a lot of cases. I've seen a lot of cases that supposedly took place, and that they would actually disappear off of that flight and then reappear on the flight before the plane landed. So you've got alien abduction going on in mid-flight.
Right.
Wild when you think about it.
And then if you go by the theory that if you go to another dimension and you come back, that you would be in a different time than the people when you left. So you might not age, and everybody else on Earth or in your timeline might have already aged. So that explains why the story of planes landing that have disappeared, and they look like they just came out of the 1950s or whatever, and we're in the 2000s.
That's very much like the story of Flight 33 on the Twilight Zone we were talking about earlier. You're going through time, space, some kind of rift. It cannot be, I'm not going to say it's like a doorway, but it could be like we said, like a wrinkle in time or a place, you know, that you can disappear into these dimensions like that. And what if you get lost in them? There's no way back, you know. Very rare. And here's the thing about people that go through portals and talk about the portals and all that. It's kind of rare, okay, that you come back at all. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
You're very lucky if you make it back. Put it that way. You got somebody looking out for you, because if you go into another dimension, everything changes for you. It's not up and down anymore. It's not sideways. Where are you at, or what other world may you be on? You know, you don't know.
Absolutely. And we don't even know if they even saw anything. You know, if they were still in their plane and never landed and they just flew around, and maybe they were in a fog, maybe they were in some kind of light and they never really saw nothing and they came back. It might have been 2 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, but it was years for us back here in our timeline.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, something similar like that happened on Lost. You remember the TV show Lost? When
Yeah,
the
they were
plane
bringing
crashed
that
on
up
the
in
town. That was a
chat.
very strange island indeed. I always had a feeling that island was not in their dimension with us. Put it that way, it was in another dimension. You would end up in a place like that, maybe. You know, definitely.
Yep. So this one's the Flying Tiger Line, Flight 739.
Mm-hmm.
Says Flying Tiger Line Flight 739 disappeared without a trace in 1962 while en route from California to Vietnam during the Vietnam War. The military transport plane was carrying 96 soldiers and 11 crew members. Despite search efforts, no wreckage or bodies were ever found, leaving loved ones and investigators with unanswered questions.
Well, it's amazing things like that, Gerald, just disappear off the face of the earth.
Yeah, we don't even know if it crashed or ran out of gas or disappeared or went through a portal. I mean, we have no clue.
Well, the ocean, you know, a lot of people don't realize, you know, how big the ocean is. Okay, do you really get out on it? It is humongous place. Okay, and it can swallow up anything very easily. It can swallow a plane up and all that. So when it goes over the ocean, or even like the Great Lakes, for that matter, over a large body of water, there's always that possibility of it being swallowed up. You know, without ever being found. Look at Amelia Earhart. They would love to find her plane, or what's left of it, to solve some of that mystery about that. And I don't know if they ever will, you know. But the interesting thing is, when the ocean gets a hold of you, you're gone. You're oblivious. You're gone into oblivion. Okay. Yeah. You got to remember the ocean. We go to the beach, we walk out in the ocean, we think that's how deep it is. It's a whole lot deeper in some places as you could ever imagine. You could put the entire 2 or 3, I think where the Titanic went down, you can stack the Empire State Building up about 2 or 3 times. That's how deep it is.
Right. Yeah.
And when you get that deep, you might as well be on another planet somewhere. You know what I mean?
So this one's Pan Am Flight 914. Pan Am Flight 914 disappeared in 1955 during a flight from New York to Miami. The plane vanished from the radar and radio contact, only to reappear 37 later in Caracas, Venezuela, with the crew and passengers missing. The mysterious reappearance of the plane sparked speculation and conspiracy theories, but left the true fate of its occupants unknown.
And if that's the one, if I'm thinking about the very strange disappearance, didn't this happen around Christmas time? They were all singing Christmas carols on the plane and all that, and it just went completely off the radar and it just disappeared completely. And I think some of the flight was over land,
Oh,
around Venezuela, somewhere like that.
well,
Weird.
yeah, this one went from New York to Miami, but then
Mhm.
came into Venezuela 37 years later somehow.
Mhm. That's strange. And
Yeah, I don't know
of course,
how it. I mean, I don't know if it's true or not, if it's just a folklore, if it's like that says conspiracy theory. I mean, I believe stuff like that possibly could happen when you have portals and all that stuff, but I think this is where all those stories come from about planes landing with passengers and crew and or disappearing, nobody on board or skeletons on board. I think the story changes all the time.
well, supposedly, according to the urban legend, this plane landed with an entire crew of skeletons, and the government hushed it up. They immediately took the plane into storage and hushed it up. Didn't want anybody to know, but this plane had been flying supposedly for 30 some odd years with a dead crew and dead passengers and everything. How could it do that?
I don't know.
That would be impossible. But let me tell you a quick story, okay? And it's supposed to be a true story. It's what happened. This happened back right at the very beginning, right before World War II began. It happened in Germany. And there was a small club, and by a small club, I mean about 4 or 5 people that were glider enthusiasts, okay? And they had bought a glider, and they would take turns flying this glider, okay? And they were like, I think four or five men and a woman that were involved in this. And this was right before the outbreak of World War II, and this was it was Nazi Germany, but it was the very beginning of Nazi Germany. And this guy, one of the guys named Hans or something, he took the glider up, and the glider never came back. It just disappeared. Well,
Wow.
Hans and the glider disappeared. They went on and they fought. They had different engagements in World War II, and they had an agreement that after the war we're going to meet back here. You know, the ones of us that survive, we're going to meet back here and have a final meeting of the glider club. You know, and they all agreed to that. And at the end of the war, I think only like 3 of them lived to make it back. I think one of them got out of a prisoner of war, all that stuff. And they made it back and they went to the place where they had the glider club, and they said, well, we're going to drink, a toast to our comrades that didn't make it back. And they heard a noise and they went outside, and there was that glider that had disappeared 5 years earlier. And it had landed out there on the tarmac with a skeleton of Hans in it. Now the theory is that if he didn't disappear into another dimension, did he get hung up in a tree somewhere? And it just got loose and finally glided in. The laws of probability on something like that are astronomical when you
Right.
think about it. But that's the only, and this supposedly has been looked at in many different angles that this could have happened this way. But this is a true story, supposedly. He did show up, and the glider did land with him in it as a skeleton.
Wow.
Where was he at for 5 or 6 years? That's the question.
In war times, you hear tales of pilots going down and they eject. And just like you were talking about, they end up parachuting and get tangled up in trees and forests in the woods, or even explorers in the Amazon. They get hung up in the trees and they can't get out, or they're knocked unconscious or whatever. And then they end up being just
Sometimes,
skeletons in the trees.
sometimes they break their neck, and
Right.
land and die up there. There have actually been, I don't know if people realize this or not, but there have actually been skeletons of Civil War soldiers found in trees. There would be snipers that climb up, in the trees and get killed up there, and their skeletons would be found years and years and years later. One of them was found, I think, on the battlefield. They found this guy walked out one day, and laying there on the ground was a perfect preserved bayonet from the Civil War. It was a Southern bayonet and had CSA on it. And he looked up in the tree and he said, "This thing fell out of a tree. What's this bayonet doing up in the tree?" So he climbs up in the tree and finds a skeleton of that soldier that died. And the only way they could figure out he was a sniper and took a bullet while he was up there in that tree. And the only way that they found out was that the bayonet accidentally came off of his rifle. The rifle rusted, the bayonet came off. If it hadn't been for that, they never would have known he was up in that tree. But these things, weird things like this happen, folks.
That's a weird thing.
It's really strange. Yeah.
It's a weird thing, just like in, I think it was World War II, where the Japanese soldier was hidden on the island. He was a scout, watched for planes and enemy air force or enemy forces, which would be us, the U.S., and he hid on that island, and the war was actually over for 7 years or more before he finally came out of hiding, and they found him and had to tell him that the war was over, and he couldn't believe it.
Nobody told me the war was over.
So he hid on that island in the jungle and in the caves and stuff, and they went and looked for him. They thought he ended up dying, and they couldn't find him. And then 7 years later, he appeared, and they finally rescued him.
Amazing, because they didn't get the orders to disembark from what they were doing. They still thought that the war was going on. It didn't happen. No, it's not that far-fetched.
So this one's the British South American Airways Star Tiger and Star Ariel. In the late 1940s, two British South American Airway planes, Star Tiger and Star Ariel, vanished without a trace while flying over the Bermuda Triangle. Despite extensive search efforts, no wreckage or bodies were ever found. The disappearance of both planes remain unsolved mysteries, adding to the intrigue of the Bermuda Triangle.
The interesting thing, about that, more planes have disappeared in the Alaskan Triangle than the Bermuda Triangle.
Yeah, ships too, because the Alaskan Triangle also covers land and sea.
Yep. That's amazing to think about. And of course, now in Alaska, you got large tracts of wilderness. Just like the ocean, it could swallow you up, You can disappear very easily. But, there's a lot. I think it was one scene on Magnum. You remember Magnum P.I.?
Right.
Where he climbs to the top of a hill, and there's an old airplane crash there. And he gets trapped somehow or another. He gets trapped under that plane up there, and he almost dies. And he finally gets out. Sheer determination, he gets out of it. But anyway, the interesting thing is you will find airplanes like that in different parts of the world sometimes that are crashed in the jungle or on mountainsides and all that nobody knows about.
Right. I mean, there's reports for the Alaskan Triangle where the one airplane that was carrying a congressman disappeared.
Well, remember that very, very famous plane crash with Patsy Cline, the singer Patsy Cline in it.
Right.
You can go to the site today, and there is a memorial there for her. You can go there and visit it. But the man that was there, he said, "Yeah, I was first on the scene. Plane crash. People don't really realize what plane crashes look like." But he said he found like one of Patsy Cline's legs up in a tree. He was very, very messed up by what he saw. In other words, it really bothers you to this day. It still bothers me what I saw. But you don't realize that when you come down with a plane, you're still going at the speed that that plane is going. You don't just stop for no reason. You don't stop. You're still going at that speed. If you're going at 200 or 300 miles an hour, that's what you're going to hit the ground as. You know,
Right.
and it can do a lot of damage. Some
So
say Buddy
you
Holly.
know that in the Lost Squadron.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I said, you know all about this one, the Lost Squadron, because we've talked about it on other shows before together. In 1943, a squadron of 5 U.S. military planes disappeared while on a training mission over the Bermuda Triangle. Despite search efforts, no wreckage or bodies were ever found. The mysterious disappearance of the Lost Squadron remains one of the enduring enigmas of the Bermuda Triangle.
That's one of the big mysteries of the Bermuda Triangle, Flight 19. You got that many ships, that many planes going down. It's amazing nobody's ever been able to find them, but like I say, the sea is a very large place. You just don't really realize how large it is. And like I said, and it swallows you up. It swallows you up. That's it,
Right. And the Lost Squadron, people still say they still see the bombers, or one of the bombers anyway. They'll say they see it flying through the air, even though they know that's not possible. And they say these ghost planes will keep going until somebody actually recovers the plane or finds it, or recovers the pilots or the crew members. Then the ghost ships won't appear no more, or the ghost planes.
Girl on Gone says she survived flying to Peru on a Spirit Airlines. Yeah, I remember Spirit Airlines. Yeah. The rescue plane sent to rescue them caught on fire and had to crash in the water. They disappeared too, I saw. That's what somebody said. Well, if you go to Peru, Girl on a Gong, let me know. I might go with you. Wish I won that recent lottery and I didn't live in California. Oh, yeah, it's a big lottery they're talking about. It was a lot of money.
Yeah.
What we got next, sir?
All righty. We have, I'm going to say Varig. It might be Varig. I don't know how to pronounce it. Flight 967. Flight 967 disappeared in 1979 while flying over the Amazon rainforest in Brazil. The plane vanished from radar screens, and despite extensive search efforts, no wreckage or bodies were ever found. The fate of the plane and its passengers remain unknown, leaving investigators baffled. Amazon's a big place. You can disappear in that awful easy.
Yeah, the Amazon rainforest. Of course, it's a lot smaller and gets smaller every day, but it's still a big place too. It can swallow up people and planes. There's a very famous incident. You might remember where supposedly it went down. The flight went down, and there was some cannibalism that went on for people to survive. I think some of that stuff. You have that happen in jungles and mountains and stuff like that. I think there was like one incident of cannibalism that was associated with a plane crash.
The other thing they say in the Amazon, that they still have sightings of dinosaurs or things that look like dinosaurs deep in the jungle.
Oh yeah.
So maybe if you crash and you actually survive the plane crash, you could get eaten by a dinosaur or something in there in the Amazon, or giant
bad way to go.
lizards and
bad way to go. Of course, there are supposedly dinosaurs seen in the Congo and Africa too, by the way. So you don't have to crash in Amazon; you can crash in Africa too.
There you go. Same thing with the Alaskan Triangle. They say up there in the tundra up there in Alaska that they said there's actually woolly mammoths that have survived all this time. No, I haven't seen one.
Mhm.
I don't know. That's just some of the stories you hear.
Well, that's that very famous Liam Neeson movie I told you about. I think called Into the Gray or something. The Gray, where they actually crash in Alaska and they have to survive against a wolf pack that's hunting them. A
Oh
very
yeah.
hungry wolf pack.
Yep.
Great movie if you ever get a chance to watch it. And great, I love survival movies. A great survival movie. He's a great actor too, by the way.
And this
Most
one
of the
is
time, wolves are not going to attack you. I mean, that's a fallacy. They just don't run and attack you for no reason. They got to have a reason. You're either a threat to their pack or they're very hungry. Usually there's extenuating circumstances to it, you know. But
right.
you got to understand, you know, animals, you're on the menu, okay? Don't care whichever way you look about it, you're on the menu. So you got to understand that just because you're human, you think you're not going to get eaten. That's the wrong thing to think about there. You can get eaten very quickly.
Yeah, we have the misunderstanding or the misbelief that we are at the top of the food chain, but that's not always the case.
Mm-hmm.
Especially when you're out there trying to survive and you don't have all your equipment to survive.
Some of us look upon us as being a little bit lower down on the food chain than we think we are anyway. But absolutely, you know, I was telling somebody I was on Aquarius Rising Africa. I talked about this where if you have a lot of people have a personal space. You don't like for some people to get too close to you. That's a
Right.
built-in mechanism, by the way. Okay,
Yep.
I mean that's that nature put in you. If you get too close to a lion or too close to a bear or buffalo, what do you think is going to happen? If you invade his personal space, he's not going to like it, okay? And you're going to be in big trouble, okay? But that's the way it goes with humans too. And sometimes you want to get somebody mad at you, you invade their personal space.
Absolutely.
It kind of triggers them, you know? I think it's a spiritual thing. I think it's really that space, that personal space thing is a spiritual thing. And a lot of people are that way about people touching you. You know, we're very easy to shake hands and come up and shake hands with somebody. You know, we need to be very careful about that because some people may not be touching you for good reasons. They can be doing some bad stuff and you don't know it. You don't really realize. So you need to be very careful who you let touch you.
Right.
And when you touch other people, it's like that old joke about it's like that joke about the dog, you know. But the guy, he sees this other guy standing there on the sidewalk with a dog, you know, big dog, you know, sitting there. And he goes up and he asks the guy, says, does your dog bite? And the guy said, no, my dog don't bite, you know. And the guy reaches down to pet that dog and likes to tear his arm off. He said, oh, wait a minute. I thought you said your dog didn't bite. He said, that ain't my dog.
I like.
Oh, yeah.
They do
Don't
that
take
same
everything for
story.
granted, you know. Don't take
They
it
do
for
that
granted.
story in the Pink Panther. I love that.
Yeah, yeah, the Pink Panther. Yeah, but don't take everything for granted. Absolutely, but you do not walk up to a strange dog. Really, I've seen this happen. You do not walk up to a strange dog and just immediately start petting him because it may not. The dog may not like that.
Right.
You know, you need to approach it carefully. Hello, Anita Bryant. Gonna have you here. But that's true, you know. We take a lot of things for granted and we shouldn't. What we got here? This is our
Air France Flight 447.
Okay.
In 2009, Air France Flight 447 disappeared over the Atlantic Ocean while en route to Rio de Janeiro to Paris. The plane crashed in the ocean, killing all 228 passengers and crew on board. Despite recovering the wreckage and flight data records, the exact cause of the crash remains unclear, leaving unanswered questions for investigators and families. I don't really know much about this one.
Girl on the gong says Gus doesn't bite. He jumps on people. I think he wants to be petted. That's what it is. She says she's a hugger too. Be careful about that, girl on the gong. You might hug a vampire and not know it. Okay, but anyway.
Oh.
That's interesting.
I didn't really know much about that last one. I don't think I've ever heard about that one. So this one's the vanishing flight of 19. In 1945, 5 U.S. Navy Avenger aircraft known as Flight 19 disappeared during a training mission over the Bermuda Triangle. Despite search efforts, neither the planes nor the 14 crew members were ever found. The mysterious vanishing of Flight 19 was one of the most enduring and puzzling mysteries of the Bermuda Triangle. Now, is this the same one as the Lost Squadron, or is this a different one?
Yeah, the Lost Squadron. Well, they think that they may have got disoriented and went out to sea instead of coming back toward land.
Oh, okay. They got turned around.
I think it's interesting. Nobody's ever found the remains of those ships. There's 5 of them out there, you know.
Yep, that's weird, isn't it?
That's another scene about from Close Encounters of the Third Kind when those pilots come back. Remember
right.
that?
Yep.
Yeah.
Then you already brought this one up. Amelia and her Lockheed Electra. The disappearance of pioneer aviator Amelia Earhart in 1937 remains one of aviation's greatest mysteries. Despite extensive searches, no wreckage of her Lockheed Electra was ever found, fueling various conspiracy theories ranging from espionage to extraterrestrial abduction.
They think there was a very famous photograph taken of her flight leaving, I think, Hawaii or wherever it was leaving. And you can see that that something may have clipped one of her aerials, radio aerials.
Oh.
And she may not have been able to call. She could still call, but not getting out as far because it was supposedly clipped. That's interesting. I saw that. I've studied Amelia Earhart extensively. It is a fascinating mystery. And there was also a ham operator at about the same time in Florida who think he may have picked up her distress call.
Right.
That's another interesting aspect of it. You know, ham radios go worldwide anyway. And it's a possibility he could have it, but I think eventually the crabs may have got her.
Right. Did you ever see that? Did you ever see that picture online? I think they did a documentary about it where she was sitting. They think it was her sitting on a pier with the with her husband or her navigator.
Yeah, I heard something about that. Yeah, you got a lot of strange stuff going on. A lot of rumors that the Japanese captured her. You know, she died in captivity. And she was also went into the supposed witness, program. Oh, a lot of different theories and stuff. I think she died. I mean,
I do too. I think she crashed and died. She might have made it to one of the small islands, but then perished there because they couldn't find her.
That's where the crabs got her.
But
and crabs will eat anything, okay, folks. Remember that next time you eat crabs, okay?
But there was all kinds of There was all kinds of theories about, like you said, whether she became a prisoner, whether she was a spy for the U.S. and she secretly was undercover and was hidden, or extraterrestrial abduction, or she died on a deserted island, or she faked her death and wanted to start a new life.
But really, there was no reason for her to. I mean, she was independently wealthy already, and there really was no need for her to go into hiding. I mean, you got to have a motivation for something like that.
Well,
Change your life completely. I don't think there was a reason. I mean, she was a top woman's aviator. She doing
right,
what she wanted to do. Nobody was impeding her from doing what she wanted to do. Her husband was backing her up. He paid money for her to do stuff like that.
right. They
I
said
mean,
she was unhappy because of the world records and failing, and everybody had all this expectation and pressure on her to do more and more things with aviation. And I think they said that they thought maybe she was done with all that and wanted to get out of the limelight and disappear. I don't
that's a
know.
possibility. Like Elvis, she might want to slowly.
Yeah, Elvis. There you go.
But I think what really happened is I believe she made it to an island because there were some bones found later on that island. And like I said, crabs, when they eat you, they don't eat the bones. Okay, they just strip the meat off the bones, but they scatter bones.
Right.
But they supposedly took those bones back to a museum, and they got lost somewhere. They may turn up again one day. I don't know, but they got supposedly lost. But that might have told the story, of what really truly happened with Amelia Earhart. But we'll never know, probably. But
Yeah. I mean, it
Josh
seems
Gates, Josh Gates has been on that case for a long time too. He had went there and actually crawled under her house looking for some of them bones. By the way,
right.
It's a fascinating thing. There's a lot of conjecture to it, and a lot of people think aliens got her, but I don't believe that either. But anyway, I think she died on an island because. And here's another thing. It was a very strange thing, and this is a weird thing that went on back in those times. There's an actual photograph of that island, and you see struts from a plane sticking out of the water. And if she'd have went down, the plane would probably have flipped upside down like that.
Right. Nose first and flip over.
Yeah. And if she could have made it to the island, it wouldn't have been that far. It wouldn't have been that impossible because she was right there on the beach. You know what I'm saying? But why did they not investigate that plane with the strut sticking out of the water? That's crazy.
Right.
I don't understand. That whole search was done. I don't know. Very strange. I don't know. Very weird.
Here's another strange one that was in the news for a long time. Malaysia Airlines flight MH370.
Oh yeah. Yeah. That guy, that was a pilot suicide. Supposedly. He wanted to commit suicide and everybody would go with him when he went. Supposedly. That may be what happened because it diverted completely off course where it was supposed to have been. There was no reason for it to do that. So they think the pilot may have actually gone insane and done something.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I had actually seen a video of the Malaysia 370 flying in the air, and I don't know where the footage came from. Maybe it's AI, maybe it's made up, but the plane's flying, and when it comes out of the cloud, these three orbs or UFOs start circling it, and then all of a sudden there's a flash of light and it disappears.
Those are Foo Fighters. The very famous Foo Fighters of World War II are still seen from time to time to this day. Nobody knows what the heck they are. But these orbs harass planes sometimes.
So you can look up that video online and you can see the 3 orbs circling it, and then all of a sudden it disappears. It looks like it's real footage to me, but I mean, AI is getting so good, who knows?
Well, there's one reported just recently, the other day, by an airline pilot, and he said he actually picked this thing up on his radar. And when he saw it, it was an orb. And they actually diverted the flight because of it.
Right.
You know, I have to wonder, though, Gerald. I'm just going to throw this out there. Something seen in the sky may be angelic activity as well. You know?
Oh, right.
We got to think about that, too. Angelic activity takes place in the sky a lot. I wouldn't be surprised.
Absolutely. You never know. Maybe that's why they never find the bodies, or some of them come up missing because they've been saved and transported by angels.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Now, do you know who this gentleman is?
Well, enlighten us.
This is Payne Stewart, a famous pro golfer that was in a private Lear jet, and him and his pilot and several members on board lost consciousness, and they were flying. And I think my next picture, if I have them right, is an actual picture of the intercept planes. The jets flew out to see what was going on. They could see through the windows that the crew and passengers were passed out, so they think it lost pressurization in the cabin. But this thing flew for thousands of miles, almost 4 hours, going straight or kind of straight, before it ran out of gas and crashed.
I agree, girl. Those doggone coconut crabs can be mean suckers. Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah.
So I don't know if you remember that case or not. That was
I
all
remember the name
news.
of that now. Hearing about that. Yeah.
Then I think the next one is what we've already talked about. Is no, this is a different one. This is a military plane that if you remember this guy.
Oh, yeah.
Glenn Miller.
Glenn Miller, yeah.
Now this one's a mystery too. I don't know if I've ever heard a story on why him and his plane and crew members disappeared while he was flying while being in war. Do you have anything on that, Dennis?
Actually, I have a very distant relative, very distant, that was on that flight. Actually, supposedly.
So this was in 1944 in December. But I don't know if they've ever came out and said what they thought will happen, or if they've ever found the wreckage. I don't believe they have. Do you know anything about it?
Mm-hmm. That happened, I think, over the channel, did it not?
Yeah. So do you recognize this guy?
He looks familiar.
Richie Valens.
Valens. Okay, yeah, okay. That's a little bit before my time. Yeah.
Then we got the Big Bopper.
Yeah.
We got Buddy Holly.
Buddy Holly, yeah. The day the music died.
The day the music died. And this is supposedly the type of plane they were flying on. And when they went down, I think this was another Christmas time one, wasn't it? I think they were doing like holiday on a tour for holiday music festivals or
Right.
something or concerts.
You know, another famous personality died in a plane crash like that, and that was uh, Ricky Ricky Nelson.
Ricky Nelson, absolutely.
And of course, I mentioned Patsy Cline earlier, and let's see who else. There was another one too. I can't think of his name.
I got a couple more. You might hit on the same ones. But do you remember the story about Whaling Jennings was in that
Oh
tour
yeah,
and he was
Wayne said,
supposed to be on the plane?
yeah, he actually was just kidding with him. You know, he said, "I hope your plane crashes." You know, I said he lived with that for many years. He felt really bad about that.
Right.
Um, you know, that he said that. It really happened. He was mad because he lost a seat on
Yeah, I mean, if
the
you if
plane.
you in the movie they did a coin flip to see who
But I
got
mean,
to go, and I'm not
he
sure
was
if
just,
that's true or if Whalen really said that.
but he just said that offhand, and he said, "Well, you know, I hope your plane crashes or something like that." You know, but he was just joking. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? But he felt real bad. He felt really like almost like he jinxed it. You know.
Do you know any of these characters?
Well, that's the looks like.
I'll go to the next one. I know you know his brother. This one is Ronnie Van Zant, and you know his brother. You've talked about his brother, the actor, before.
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
But this is Ronnie Van Zant from Leonard Skinner, and these are the other.
Leonard Skinner, yeah.
This is a backup singer, Casey Grimes, I believe, or
She died too.
he
Yeah.
died, and Steve Gaines, the guitarist, and of course there was other people that passed away during that wreckage too. But there was quite a few members of the band that survived, and they had to come back. And one
I
of his
think it pretty
brothers, his
well,
brother that sang in 38 Special, came in and took over the lead
pretty
singing.
well
So
destroyed the band. I mean, you know, so many of them died.
that's Leonard Skinner that died in a plane crash in 1977.
I think there was talk of drug use on that plane, that they think some of that might have had some contributing factor to it with the pilots, you know.
Maybe there's. I mean, they were in that time during that rock era, so who knows? I don't think the pilots, unless the pilots were doing it too, but who knows what happened.
Mm-hmm.
And this is Kobe Bryant.
Oh yeah, that's very recent that
Yeah,
happened.
that hasn't been too long ago. That was 2020, I believe. Of course, he didn't die in a plane. He crashed in a helicopter and they can't. I don't know if did they ever explain why the helicopter crashed into the side of that mountain or
In the fog, wasn't it?
fog, and the pilot might not have been experienced enough or got mixed up on its instruments. I don't
I
know.
think that was pilot error too, isn't it? The lady ruled that as pilot error, I think. Yeah.
Then we got Amelia. I already had Amelia in the other slide, and this is a picture of her.
Oh yes.
Then here's one of the famous pictures of her on top of the nose of her plane.
Oh yeah, that's a very famous picture. sitting on it. Like I say, I just don't see her wanting to, get out of the limelight. She kind of liked it. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know either. I was just saying some of the stories that I've read or heard or seen in the documentaries that they've had on her life, and that she was
I
stressed
don't
out.
think I don't think the Japanese captured her. They would have found out. There would have been evidence of that after the war. I mean, I don't think that went that way. I think she died in a plane crash, more or less.
Right.
But where she at, what her true fate was, that's the main mystery of it all. What really happened. We do know she probably ran out of gas because she
Yeah,
it
she
was
was
a
supposed
long
to.
stretch from one island to another island to where she'd get more gas.
Right.
That's the thing about it. When you're doing island hopping, or you're doing over large stretches of water, you better know what your fuel consumption is. You better have it calculated down to the minute.
She looks pretty happy there. Well, that is the last of my picture sharing that I have.
Well, that was good. That's very interesting. A lot of mysteries. Absolutely. A lot of mysteries are still ongoing about the haunted skies above us. Even in just things like the Twilight Zone or even in real life.
Right.
It still fascinates us. I doubt.
Trying to
But
think.
the sky is kind of like the ocean, Gerald. Anything can happen on the ocean. Anything can happen in the sky. I mean, it's still a uncharted place.
It is a mystery. I mean, just like the oceans, we don't really know that much about space in our skies that we think we do.
Well, think about Amelia Earhart. I hope she was dead when the crabs ate her. I don't like to think about them being alive. That would be bad. Bad way to go. But
She looks kind of feisty to me. I think she could probably fight them off if she was healthy enough.
yeah. So she ran out of bullets or whatever. But it's a bad, bad way to go. Absolutely. I don't care, even if it's in the ocean or whatever's going on. Plane crashes are bad, like I said. And like I said, no matter how fast the plane is going, that's how fast you're going to go when it stops, too. That's the way it goes. Same thing with a car crash.
Right.
You're going to keep moving at the same speed. People don't realize that, but you don't.
If you look up ghost flights on the internet, it talks about the airplanes that are flying empty with no passengers because the airlines can't keep enough passengers and flights going all the time, but they shuttle airplanes completely empty back and forth all the time. So they call them those ghost flights now.
Oh, yeah, ghost flights, yeah. And, a lot of people don't know it, but the lights that light up the stage when all the main lights are off, one light burning on the stage, you know what it's called? A ghost light.
Ghost light. I was going to say phantom light, but yeah, ghost light. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, it's called a ghost light, but you get a lot of names. And now they have what they call ghost drones. Now, what they mean by that is they're not spooky kind of ghosts. They're talking about unknown drones. In other words, they're coming from, sources unknown. They're ghost drones.
Right.
That's why, and you hear that term, that's what they're talking about. It just means they're unknown. But we use that word ghost a lot on stuff.
You know, and a lot of these flights that we talked about, whether they crashed or just disappeared off the radar, there's still many stories online, at least, that people still see these planes flying from time to time, and that's what gives them the ghost planes or the ghost flights.
Kind of like that Ghost of Flight 33 on the Twilight Zone.
Yep.
They don't know where to land. And like I said, that very famous urban legend about the flight that lands with all the skeletons on it. Where was it at for 30 years? It's not like you can't have the same similarity in like a ghost ship on the ocean. You might find one of those 30 years later. It's very probable it can float around for 30 or 40 years, you know? But when you come to the airplanes, they're not supposed to stay in the sky that long. There's
Right.
something definitely going on with that. Uh, so that's the interesting thing about that. Like that very famous case I told about the glider with the skeleton in it. Where was that thing for 5 years? You know, it hung up in a tree. I think it may have been hung up in the trees or something, up in the mountains and come loose and just happened to land there. You know, I mean, it's the laws of probability, you know. But it is very weird and eerie that it would come down on the same day they all met there for the last time in that club. I mean, that's the interesting thing about it. And he showed up for the last meeting. Okay, so there you go.
Yep, absolutely.
Is the Alfred Hitchcock used to say, "Be that as it may." That's what happened. But anyway, well, this has been an interesting show tonight. Definitely,
Yeah,
I think we covered the ghost airplane.
we've been over an
We
hour
did
and
the
a half
train,
already.
ship. We did the planes and the ships. So we all now. I don't know if we can think of any more ghost things. Maybe we'll do ghost dogs one night or something. Okay,
Or just ghost animals.
that's
We could do ghost animals.
ghost animals. Yeah, we'll have to do that one day. I got a lot
Ghostly,
of good stories about
ghostly
animals.
pets.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if we do that, I got a story. I got a story.
Mm-hmm. Damien says control tower operators are told to keep that hush. Everybody's shut up. Pilots, operators, stewardesses, all of them. They're shut. They shut that stuff down. They don't want to talk about it.
Just like the astronauts, the pilots, and all them, they have code words for aliens and UFOs.
The astronauts are told not to talk about this. Mm-hmm. The old term, remember the old term from World War II was a boogeyman, a bogey.
Right. But no, I mean, today's pilots and astronauts, when you hear them or you hear communications that leak out, they have code words for talking about aliens and extraterrestrials and weird stuff.
Yeah, because they're not allowed to say it. It's really, censorship, no matter which way you look at it. That's not good, but that's the way it goes. They get away with it because they got the power,
Yep.
But that's the way it goes in this world anyway. Well, I appreciate y'all being here tonight. Gerald, you got any last thoughts on ghost planes?
Well, I would have to say go through that list, rewatch this show, and if you book a flight over the holidays or sometime for a vacation, better check to see what the number of the plane is.
Mm-hmm. And if you happen to hear the sound of those jet engines, you might want to shoot up a flare or something, okay? Just in case. It might be me flying, okay? I might need a flare.
Well,
okay.
go out to your country road and get some flashlights and try to flag them in, see if they want to land.
Yeah, there you go.
Well, this has been fun, Dennis.
Yeah, it's been real interesting. Very interesting conversation tonight. Absolutely. And Yeah, we may have to do ghost animals next. We covered everything else, so we may come up with some ghost animals for you
You'll
next
you'll,
time on the road less traveled.
you'll have to
Okay.
remind me. I got a story to go with that. So when we have that show, I got a story to tell, a personal one.
Okay, that'd be good. I'd like to hear that, definitely. Well, we'll have to set that up for next weekend if nothing happens. Ghost animals. We're on a ghost spin, so there we go. We're spinning the ghost out here. Well, I appreciate you all being here tonight and your support is tantamount. Please check out my good friend Mr. Gerald Fountain's channel, which is Midwest Night Watchers, and they are watching the Midwest skies. Okay,
That's
absolutely.
right.
Yes, sir. And check him out. And who you got coming on this week? You got some guests lined up?
Actually, since we're talking about ghosts, we have Lynn Monet supposed to come on with us this weekend, and we're going to be talking about ghosts and spirits and things that she's helped people with because she does that. She helps people that have ghosts and all kinds of spirits in their house. She helps clean their houses, and so we got that to look forward to.
Well, I might just have to haunt your chat room.
Oh, she can probably clear that out too. She's pretty good.
All right. Well, I tell you what, it's one thing to get ghosts, it's another thing to get rid of them. Okay, folks, there you go. If you got them, you might want to get rid of them. Although some people don't want to get rid of them. I actually had a case one time with a guy said, "You can come in and investigate all you want, but do not get rid of my ghosts." Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
I mean, some of them don't bother you that much. They did, they might move a thing here or two or make a noise, but other than that, they leave you alone. So they just kind of work out a deal and live together.
Well, ghosts kind of give a place personality. You know what I mean? There you go. Well, anyway, but that guy, he actually owned. I was doing the investigation. I told you that before about a 16th century pub. It was a hangout for a black-bearded pirate. But it was a very interesting investigation. I did run into some spirits that night, absolutely. But it wasn't pirates, though, unfortunately. I wanted some pirate ghosts, okay? Doggone it. But anyway, it was a very interesting case, but he didn't want me to get rid of his ghosts, okay? He thought he had pirate ghosts. I said, well, I'm not going to mess with them. I'll leave them alone. Leave them where they're at. I said, I just want to borrow them for a little while. I'll put them right back, when I get down with them. Right. Anyway, it was a very interesting thing. I have to tell everybody about that sometime. But I did run into something, but it wasn't pirates. But I wish it had been pirates, definitely. But there was I wish I had that photograph. I don't think I still have it. But it wasn't my group. It was another group that took a photo on the stairs. And there was definitely a presence there. You could see like a mist. And there should not have been a mist in this building. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
That was a very strange photograph, but I can vouch for that basement because I actually got touched by a ghost in that basement.
Oh, was it chilly? Was it cold?
I mean, it was wow. And it was, I've had asked people have asked me, what does it feel like to be touched by a ghost? It's a weird feeling. It's sort of a tingle, weird kind of an electrical feeling to it. You know what I'm saying? It's kind of weird. But this was a female ghost that came up to me and brushed my cheek with her hand.
Wow.
And honest to God, Gerald, I could hear the rustle of her dress. And this woman was deceased by like 100 years.
Oh, my.
She was a dead prostitute, and they had kept their bodies in this basement. And I didn't know that. I didn't know. I mean, I didn't know about that part of the history. I was looking for pirates. Okay, and so I come back up there, and I told that guy that owned that thing. I said, "Look, I said, I had a very strange incident. I said, I could honest to God, like I ran into a woman down there in that basement. And he looked at me real funny. He said, well, here's something I didn't tell you. That back in the 1890s, there were several prostitutes that were murdered in this town. And it was in wintertime, and they couldn't dig the graves, and they kept their bodies stored in that basement. That was
Wow.
a light bulb moment. I said, oh, no wonder I felt a woman. uh, that was wild. And he said that, and that's what he said to me. He said, you have given me confirmation on that. I said, evidently I have.
Right.
That
You
was
know what?
weird.
Once you have been touched by a ghost, just like you said, you could hear the rustling of her dress as she walked by or moved around, that you become part of their dimension, or you're in tune to their frequency.
I
So
could
you're
feel.
part of their world.
It was let me tell you this. It was a warm night, okay? And I'm in the basement. Now, the basement is like under a hatch, a floor, okay?
Right.
And it's like on out of a movie. It's got a hatch, door hatch, And I'm in this basement, and there's no air down there in the basement, okay? There's no air. And I felt this thing come to me. And it was like cool. It was cold. No, it wasn't freezing, you know what I'm saying? But it was
Right.
rather cool. I could feel this thing come up to me and brush me on the face like that. That was wild.
Wow.
And I was sitting there filming this, and I was going, please, God, let me get this on film. This is wild, but it didn't show anything. It didn't show anything. That's the way it goes with the paranormal anyway.
Well, we better save these stories for another show.
But that's my ghost story for the night. But anyway. Huh?
I said we better save these stories for another show.
Yeah, we'll have to tell some ghost stories one night. Definitely, some of the ghosts that I run into from time to time. I have seen full-bodied apparitions. It's very rare though that you have interaction. That's the thing that you want. The interaction. There's something going on with that. But 9 times out of 10, what you run into in a graveyard is not a deceased person. And people need to understand that. There's a whole different ball game. But that was very strange. But anyway, we'll have to do a story on that one night.
All right. Sounds good. I look forward to it.
All right, well, we appreciate you all being here tonight. It's been a great show, and we'll always do a good show when it comes to ghosts anyway. But anyway, we appreciate being here tonight, and we thank you for your support. And I will be back on New Year's Eve for the show on Wednesday night with Hunting the Shadows. And I will see you next year on Paranormal Point of View, okay? And definitely. And we appreciate your support and for you tuning in and taking the journey with us down the road less traveled. And until we get back together again, remember, Fortis Fortuna Advant. One of my favorite ones. Fortune favors the bold. Okay, don't forget that. Okay, that's written on the back of John Wick, by the way. If you ever watch John Wick,
there you go.
He's got that tattooed on his back. Okay.
Yeah, I just want to remind
hey,
Dennis.
He said he's wanting to do John Wick 5, but he don't know if his knees will hold up to it. So we'll see.
Hey, Dennis, I just want to remind everybody in chat that's going to watch.
Thank you all for being here tonight. It's been. Yep. And matter of fact, if you want to, by the way, if you want to watch John Wick 1, 2, and 3, you can watch them for free on Pluto. Okay. So if you've never seen John Wick, and this trip, because John Wick is great. Okay. If you've never seen it, now's your time to catch 1, 2, and 3 on Pluto for free. Okay, check it out. There you go. You get a free hint when you tune into the show tonight. Okay, there you go. All
There
right.
you go.
So appreciate you being here. And Fortis Fortuna Avant to you. Until we meet again, Godspeed.
Night, everybody.